Welcome to Suncrest United Methodist Church. My name is Mark Markle. I'm a member here. I'm a member because of fellowship I experience with other members of the church for the work that a church does on an outreach basis. There's a lot of opportunities at Suncrest United Methodist Church. Welcome to the SUM.
My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly lean on Jesus' name. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. When darkness veils his lovely face, I rest on his unchanging grace. In every high and stormy gale, my anchor holds within the veil. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. His oath, his covenant, his blood support me in the whelming flood. When all around my soul gives way, Him is all my hope to say. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. When he shall come with trumpet sound, oh, may I then in him be found, dressed in his righteousness alone, faultless to stand before the throne. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand.
So I've been listening to folks and their experiences with worship over the last 18 months or so during the pandemic. It's been kind of interesting. For some folks, worship has become a laptop on the bed with their pajamas on and a cup of coffee and maybe a piece of toast. For some folks, worship has been coming to the sanctuary here with the mask on, checking in at the front, sitting socially distanced from others, and that has been a mixed experience for some folks. And for some people who were separated from the sanctuary for quite a long time, coming back into the physical space where they've worshiped for years, brought tears to their eyes. So what would you say over the last 18 months, year? What has worship been like for you? And for that matter, what is worship? How would you define it? What happens in worship for you? Well, consider this story of mine. When I was a kid growing up, my family had a set of encyclopedias. For you young folks, it's an old-fashioned Google. There will be numerous books, A through Z. And if you were interested in a topic, you would find in the alphabet which book your topic was in, and you'd flip pages until you found it and you could read about it. Growing up, I only had like 2 or 3 TV channels, so sometimes TV was just absolutely boring like today, except now you have 115 channels. And I would go to the encyclopedia sometimes. My favorite book would be the volume that had stuff on the human body, human anatomy. Here's how it would go. All right, I'd flip open to a page, and there I would see the human skeleton. And there would be names of bones and lines pointing to the bones. Then I could flip an almost transparent page over top of the human skeleton. If I remember correctly, the human nervous system. Fascinating for me. There was another page, almost transparent except for the circulatory system, over top of the bundles of nerves and the bones. And then, if I remember correctly, last there would be the muscles. Flip the page, and there you could see, piled up on top of one another, the story of the human body according to a 1950-something encyclopedia. It was amazing for me to see the layers of the story, literally portrayed in those pages, the story of the miraculous human body. I share that story with you because it reminds me of a story in the scripture that I want to share with you. It's Easter Sunday, and there are two people, one of them named Cleopas, the other unnamed, who are walking the several miles from Jerusalem to a little village called Emmaus. And a stranger comes up and joins them on the walk, asks them what they're talking about. What do you mean, what are we talking about? Haven't you heard? Jesus of Nazareth, prophet, mighty in deed and in word before God. He did so many great things. We had hoped that he was the Messiah. And they tell the story of how they had hoped in Jesus. And they say this in verse 22 of chapter 24. Moreover, some women of our group astounded us. They were at the tomb early this morning, and when they did not find his body there, they came back and told us that they had indeed seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. Some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see him. Then he said to them, then Jesus, mysteriously walking with them, said, "Oh, how foolish you are, and how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have declared. Was it not necessary that the Messiah should suffer these things and then enter into his glory? Then, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them the things about himself in all the scriptures." So I think worship is like this. We're like this couple who are walking down the road, and we're told that they are fumbling and mumbling and stumbling down the road, and they are sad and bewildered and confused. But they are confident that they have the story right. They have known what's happened. They've known what they've hoped. And now they know their disappointments. I think that's like you and me sometimes. We come to worship. We've got a story running in our mind. And oh my goodness, it can be a sad story and a confusing story. Bewildering one. That's like the page with the bones. We gather in worship, bringing our stories. And then we hear God's story. Just like these two on the road. Jesus listens to them and to their experience and to their story, but he tells God's story next. And he tells a story that transforms the story that these two have brought on the road with them. You and I, we gather and worship. We bring our stories, the stuff that we're confident about. We know this, we've experienced this is how it is. But we open ourselves to listening to God's story. And it's like, okay, the bones, the picture of the bones. And then more gets laid over top until that picture is transformed. Okay, we bring our story, our perspective, our disappointments, and we hear God's story, and our story is transformed by God's story. What is worship to you? What's it like? What has it been like? Is worship for you 3 songs and a sermon? Is it opening up the laptop, folding your laundry while you listen, or coming here in person, sitting in a pew far from other folks? Or is worship bringing your story to God and then listening to God's story deeply, curiously, and being transformed? Here's a little poem by Malcolm Guite, a story about Sunday morning. Today we feel the wind beneath our wings. Today the hidden fountain flows and plays.